Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Middle of the Pack Racing League Touring Car Racing Championship for 2022. And tonight marks round 4 of the 9-round calendar, as brought to you across multiple racing rounds across 3 different cups. And well, tonight we are in round number 4, of course, at Donington Park. We are in Leicestershire, in England, in the United Kingdom, for what is the start of the British Touring Cup Championship, or a mini cup if you will, which is part of the wider championship. It's the best way to differentiate between the championship and the cups, the 3 cups contributing to the overall championship, but it is the case there are prizes up for grabs for our overall championship winners and also our cup champions. If that weren't confusing enough, well, let's try and simplify some of these items for you. We have a talk about our schedule for tonight. You can see it there, our race schedule in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT or UTC. It'll be the case in just under 14 minutes time. We'll be going qualifying for our 15-minute qualifying session, where our pros and AMs will separately take to the circuit for half of the session each to determine the grid order for the purposes of one and only race, and that will be at 8:30 tonight, and that will be the 20-minute sprint race, as we return to the sprint race format for round number 4 and round number 5 after the feature last time out at Watkins Glen over in the United States. Is the case we're back for the 20-minute sprint, while drivers will be all in, no pit stops required. The only strategy is get to the front of your respective class and win the race if you can. Now in the commentary box tonight you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and it's absolutely great to be back after a week's break. Indeed, everybody, I think all of our drivers appreciated the week's break in order to be able to recharge the batteries and go racing once again. Now this broadcast night is only being brought to you on my Twitch channel, that is twitch.tv/TX141. We do apologise for the slight delay in going live tonight. We had some technical issues with our broadcast provider, so as a result we can't bring you the YouTube broadcast, which I know many of you do enjoy, but we're going to be here on Twitch, and hopefully we won't see any more technical issues, and we've ironed those out of the way. And one more thing I should clarify is, of course, that whilst we are looking back at a replay file tonight on the sim racing platform of iRacing, which is where we host this series, this race is technically not live. It happened on Wednesday early this week, where we bring you all the racing action as if it were live. So it is the case that I, as your commentator, do not know what happened, and therefore, well, there's going to be plenty of surprises, I'm sure, and plenty of racing action for us to talk about and analyse over the course of tonight. Now, speaking of action, let's come on to our drivers and really the story of the action so far. Well, as we look to the Pro Class standings firstly, it is the case that after the opening 3 rounds, Jason Landry leads the Pro Class tables here on 74 points, a sizable margin of 28 points, and an ever-growing margin, it would seem, for Jason Landry, who picked up at Watkins Glen last time out 2nd place behind Tristan Bayless, and in the end was crowned our America's Cup champion in the Pro Class. He is the first of our $5 winners, and it is the case that he has booked his ticket to be able to go through to what is the Race of Champions, I believe, later this year, unless I'm very much mistaken. I may be getting ahead of myself, but I'm sure you'll correct me on that. Henry Morse, meanwhile, in P2, it is the case that Henry Morse, one of our most consistent performers in the Pro Class, in P2 on 46 points, 4 ahead of Eric Nickens, of course. Eric Nickens' championship right now could be summarised as a bit of a roller coaster in the fact that he was able to launch his high and dive right into the air in round number 2 at Summit Point. Of course, he was able to get out of the car safely, what of it being a virtual car, but it was a horrific incident, and we're very grateful that he's come back in round number 3. And he put on a good performance at Watkins Glen, a very strategic performance from Eric Nickens, and he is joined on 42 points right now with Tristan Bayless. Tristan Bayless, last time out, of course, being our winner in what was the race at Watkins Glen, was a superb drive from start to finish and holding off a very fast-charging Jason Landry in the Hyundai, with Tristan Bayless being in the Honda Civic Type R, and a great battle between the two of them that went all the way down to the wire. Conrad McCall in P5 there on 40 points, joint 40 points with John Lauzon, and then only a further point off in P7 at both Austin Farr and Sam Van Olst there, and it is the case that Sam Van Olst building a reputation for perhaps being one of the ultimate defensive drivers, and we do wonder whether we're going to be seeing a defensive masterclass from Sam Van Olst tonight. In P9, Tanner Dibble on 38 points, only a further 2 back, and Adam Day a further 2 points behind him. In P10, alongside John Wilding, is the case both drivers trying to build up a bit more momentum, and then we have Rocco Havath, Jordan Butler, Ben Rose, and Daniel Downing completing those Pro Championship standings at this point in time. Now, in the instant count tally, of course, there is a prize for the driver who has the least number of instants within their respective class over the course of the season. You can see it is the case currently that Conrad McCall is on only 5 instants there. He is leading the way, but only 1 less than Ben Rose down in P at 14. And it is the case at the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Jordan Butler there, who has really been in the wars and picked up more instants than most, almost double the next driver there of Adam Day on 29, with 50 instant points to Jordan Butler's name, and he'll be trying to bring those down, of course, over the rest of this season. Meanwhile, in the AM Championship, the complexion is a bit similar at first, but then there are some noticeable differences. The similarity is that we do have a runaway leader in the AM Championship, and that is Alberto Alvarez, with the fact that right now Alvarez on 74 points, and he was our America's Cup champion as crowned at Watkins Glen, with another brilliant performance from Alvarez. However, it would seem that his pursuers are gaining a lot of ground, and none more so than Duncan Moraes there in P2 on 57 points. It is the case that the 27-point delta between the two drivers, well, it doesn't quite tell the whole story, and I think it has been the case that Moraes has had a bit of bad luck, and he is looking to be right up there versus Alvarez. In fact, as I do my maths correctly, it's actually 17 points, not 24 points. Apologies for that. However, who is 24 points down, I should say, is Roger Ganesh there in P3. And it is the case that Roger Ganesh putting in another set of solid performances at what was Watkins Glen. And well, you can imagine that Ganesh will be looking to try and close that margin to Moraes and also Alvarez over the course of tonight. Fernando Takahashi and Justin Brangham both on P4 there on 41 points. And Takahashi, who was a strong starter in the season, has fallen a little bit by the wayside over the last two rounds, particularly at Summit Point where it didn't go right. And also at Watkins Glen to an extent where he just didn't have the pace. But you can imagine he'll be coming back tonight in the Audi with Justin Brangham alongside him. Craig Parks P6 with Albert Brown P7 there, the two of them separated by only a point, and two very strong middle of the field drivers within the AM class, and Lee Porter, Auguste Blondel and Rodney Felk there completing your top 10. Danny Kimball, Edwin Arthur and Patrick Brady there in P11 all on 29 points, with Jermaine Warren and Tony Tran in P14 sharing 27 points apiece, and then Mark Senegal, who had his debut quite recently in P16 with Stefan Chalafou and Jeff Destino and Lucas Lagos completing our championship order there. In the instant count wars, meanwhile, it is the case that Edwin Onofre is currently leading with only one instant to his name, and well, that is an absolutely stellar start to his instant count campaign, and can he continue it? That is the big question, of course, given the fact that after 3 rounds, only one instant to his name. Well, if he can keep it up like this, he's got a huge advantage. And at the other end of the spectrum, as we look on down there, it is the case that right now Alberto Alvarez having one of the highest instant counts in the AM class on 35, if not the highest, with Danny Kimball on 30 behind him. And it is the case they'll be both looking to bring their counts on down. Meanwhile, in the team standings, whilst there's not an official prize up for grabs in the team standings, it's always nice to talk about the teams in the championship there. Delta Motorsports continue to lead on 130 points, with Goldwing Motorsports Pro behind them by 29 points, and middle of the pack in the completion of the top 3 positions there on 82. DNA trying to get themselves into the top 3, only 2 points separating the two teams there, with Sunday GT Turtles on 77 and RMS Racing on 74, with Motus in P7 on 73. Very close there in the top 6, and it is the case that a single set of results could turn things upside down for these guys. Meanwhile, Goldwing Motorsports and there really starting off strong, but by the wayside in the last round, only 57 points to their name, but they'll be looking to get some more on the board tonight, and really the best of the rest outside of that top 7 quandary, with the fact we have Street Version P9 and Pan Am Racing at P10, with Ascension Racing on 29 points in P11 and Arc Sim Racing Team completing our team championship standings on 8 points in a P12. Remember, there are a lot of drivers acting as privateers where they're not representing the team, they're representing their own self-interest and their own private team, so that's why they're not listed here, otherwise we'd have a much longer list. Now, as for the season, well, it is the case that the calendar, we have completed the America's Cup. We completed that last time out 2 weeks ago. Now we're in stage 2 of the British Touring Cup, which aims to mimic in a way what is known as the British Touring Car Championship, or the BTCC, which will be coming back soon in 2022, kicking off, I believe, very much so with the testing days at Thruxton in the near future. But focusing here and now, we are at Donington National today. It says they're Donington GP, but we switched it to Donington National in order to align with what is the iRacing calendar for touring car racing, ITCR, and also because I do believe, unless I'm very much mistaken with my touring car facts, it is the case that touring car normally races at Donington National before it does at Donington GP later in the year, if at all. So it's only right we do race at Donington National. I think that's appropriate. And the race did happen on the 2nd of March, but of course we're bringing you all the action as if it were live on March the 4th. We then head to Alton Park Fosters in a week's time, which will be March the 9th in the actual race, the 11th of March for what is the broadcast. And in Silverstone International, on March the 16th, we'll be bringing you that broadcast on March the 17th due to a slight change in delay in schedule, but then it'll be the case that we have a break before returning for the Japanese Cup, which will wrap up stage number 3, and of course we'll crown one more set of Cup champions with the Japanese Cup, and more on the broadcasting dates there. They will be changed a little bit, but more on those at a future time. Let's not worry about that too much now. So what about our track then? As we've previously said, we're in Leicestershire, England for the Donington Park Racing Circuit National Variant. And as you can see here, from the image provided to us by simracingwiki.com, this circuit consists of 10 very tricky corners. Now, the reason we say it's tricky, and perhaps this image doesn't say everything, this circuit has quite a few undulations. And whilst it's a very fast and quite a short circuit, it is the case with the lap time coming in at just over 1 minute and 10 seconds. It is a circuit which, after multiple laps, particularly in race conditions, will put a driver through their ultimate paces, because the idea behind this circuit is about nailing your ability and your bravery on the brakes, but as well as that, being able to get back on the throttle as soon as possible, something which is a huge challenge in our touring car racing machines, because of course they're front engine front wheel drive, and that means the front wheels have to do all the work. They have to do all the steering, and they also have to do all the power deployment. The rear wheels actually have quite an easy life by comparison, so if you get it wrong, you're going to be understeering off when you try and get on the power, but conversely, of course, if you don't balance it right, you'll be losing out lap time. And in particular, we're looking at, say, the Craner curves down into the old hairpin at turn number 4, and also the run through McLean's and Coppice turns 7 and 8. Those corners in particular are going to catch a lot of drivers out, given the fact that Coppice is a blind summit braking zone. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers will be braking uphill into an apex they cannot see at Coppice, and we'll show you what that looks like in a brief moment in qualifying. Now, as for our rules, because it is a sprint night, of course, it is round number 4, it is a sprint. As a result, we'll be seeing, in terms of setup, our drivers shall always be running the iRacing baseline setup, and their fuel loads shall be restricted to 32%, but we return to having a qualifying session, where the session is broken into equal halves, the first half being for the AM drivers, the second half for the Pro drivers, and the sprint race that immediately follows will start under manual double file rolling start, with the formation to be held up to the start-finish line, after which drivers may go racing. Each driver has one fast repair available, although if they've had to use that, it may be the case their race is out of the running, because of the fact they'll have to take time in the pits. And a driver shall be subject to a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points. Well, I think that's very much about rules, regulations and everything. I think we want to get back to those live pictures, don't we? And so we head back there. And it is the case that as we look to our drivers making their way on around right now, we've still got approximately 3.5 minutes left of this final practice session. And well, with the time remaining, it is the case that we look around here and we can see Jason Landry making his way on through under Starkey's Bridge through turns 5 and 6 and heading up towards McLean's 7 right now. And well, of course, he is the man with the big target painted on his back. He is our championship leader in the Pro class, and he is our Americans Cup Pro Cup winner, I should say. Mincing my words there. And well, he'll have to hold off the likes of John Lauzon, who'll be looking to come strong. And John Lauzon, really, after a very strong performance that was undermined by one sole mistake at Laguna Seca in the opening round, and it was the case that one mistake actually cost him the win in the end. You can imagine that Lauzon, if he can find that momentum and get himself back into the spirit of things, he could really come back on strong. But I think for Lauzon, that's the big challenge that he's going to have to deal with. He just doesn't seem to be able to find that form that he had at what was at the start of the season. But to be fair, I say that, and then I look at the timing board on the left-hand side, indeed the timing tower, and you can see that right now he's the fastest of everybody in this final practice session with 1:21.1. Now, the question is, of course, what sort of lap times are we expecting in qualifying? I'm hearing rumours down in the paddock. We are expecting low 1:12s to be the form, and, well, I said a 1:21 there, getting my numbers mixed up. It's a Friday, you'll have to forgive me, but it is the case that we're expecting low 1:12s as a minimum, and, well, could we even see a 1:11 in qualifying? We would love to see a 1:11. We'll have to wait and see how track temperature and also conditions favour drivers and whether they can get the all-important tow, because there are quite a few straightaways around Donington Park National, albeit we don't quite have the straights that we would at the GP circuit, particularly the run through what is the S's, and as a result that would lead onto the straight all the way down to Melbourne Hairpin, but we're not running that today. It is the case at National we do have the straightway all the way down from Coppice Corner in towards what is Gollards, the chicane of turns 9 and 10, and it's also the run out to turn number 10 and up into turn number 1 at Redgate, as it's also known, and we will be referring to the corners by their name every so often, and also for those of you who have a numerical disposition, we'll also refer to them by corner numbers, that way you don't get too confused, and we'll try to stick to a sort of standard terminology at some point. Most likely I'll be trying to use the names where possible, because it is the case, as a massive touring car fan, well, I do know most of these corners by name, but do let me know in the chat, in the Twitch chat, if you would prefer me to use numbers, then I can do that for you as well. And speaking of the Twitch chat, well, let's say hello to all of you in here, and many of you returning viewers, of course, and some of you new viewers and some first-time viewers, such as their OG Bizarro and also F1 Delta, Goldwing Supremacy there from F1 Delta, cheering on Team Goldwing Motorsports. We've also got their Max LP80 saying let's go indeed, Max. We've also got Gingerbread Mans saying good afternoon, and well, good evening to you, Gingerbread Mans. And we also have their Duncan Murray saying hello, and hello to you, Duncan, and we're looking forward to seeing how you get on. I can see their Gingerbread Man's saying to Tsukuba is going to be one to remember. Indeed it is, but more on that another time. Of course, Tsukuba being the legendary Japanese circuit where you typically see the MX-5 Cup races being held there every year. Well, it is the case we're going to be seeing our touring cars go around Tsukuba later on this year, and well, that is going to be an absolutely fantastic round, I can imagine. Indeed, all the rounds have been fantastic, to be fair, but you can imagine Tsukuba is going to be very tight, and I think overtaking is going to be tricky, if not rather adventurous. Now, the form we're expecting here at Donington Park, we have so far really seen that the Hyundai Electra, as we can see it being driven here by John Lauzon, has been the go-to car. It's the case the Hyundai seems to have the balance of the characteristics between the cars. Of course, there is a preset balance of performance as provided by iRacing as part of the simulator, but it is the case that the Hyundai does seem to have been the car to beat in equal hands. However, let's not just say it's a Hyundai-based series, because we do have a variety of cars. As we see Austin Farr here making his way around in the Goldwing Motorsports Honda Civic Type R in the Pro Class. The Honda has been the race car. It has been the car with the stronger brakes, and it is the case that the Honda has done very well as the races have gone on, particularly in the feature race we saw at Watkins Glen. And as we get the transition over to qualifying, we'll talk very shortly about what the Audi brings to the table. As we see Supreme World there saying any regulations for this league, the only regulations are that drivers must turn up in what is one of the free touring cars, as it will be the case that we'll be seeing our AMs take to the circuit first and foremost in this qualifying session. We are just waiting for them to start leaving the pits. They will in a very short order. We're going to try and get some of them as they're making their way out of the pit lane. But it is the case, for those wondering, if you wanted to sign up tomorrow, we need to talk to the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, and we'll provide you with links to how you can communicate with them later on. But it is the case, all you have to have is a willingness to race fairly, the ability to race within American time zones, because this series is hosted based on American time zones. I can't remember the exact timings, but also on top of that, you have to have one of the free touring cars here, whether it be the Audi RS3, which we can see here, Patrick Brady taking it down through what is the curves there and all the way down into turn number 4 at the old hairpin. Alternatively, if you've got the Honda Civic Type R, as you can see here, the Aperture Motorsport Science machine there as being driven by Receptica, and we also have what is the Hyundai Electra, and of course that being driven by a number of our drivers such as Alberto Alvarez here. But beyond that, those are really the regulations. It is of course a free series as well. Our drivers do not have to pay to join this series, and as a result, it's a free sign up, and as long as you've got that willingness to enjoy racing, well, we'd love to have you join here. If you're watching right now thinking, how do I get involved? Well, we'll provide you with that information later on. But speaking of information, let's give you a run through then of a lap around Donington Park National, as brought to you by Alberto Alvarez. So coming out of Goddard here and making his way down towards that start-finish line here to go on to a qualifying lap, it is coming across the timeline and inching his way to the left-hand side. Being up through the gill box and getting ready to brake into turn number 1, into Redgate Corner. He's got a bit of a traffic coming out there. He's going to have to take evasive action there, and the driver does as well. Make his way for the right-hander. A late apex there at Redgate, and as a result, we want to get on the pound nice and late as he makes his way down now through the crane curve tip, through turn 2, and watch this. From a driver's perspective, it's blind as you come down through 3. Where's the apex? Only when you go over the bump you see it, and now braking into the old hairpin here. A sweeping right-hander, a deceptive corner here. You want to carry a lot of speed, but you can see there how he's had to really slow the car down from into third gear, and now under Starkey's Bridge through turn number 5, coming through the left-hander at turn number 6, and getting ready for McLean's Corner at turn number 7, braking just after the end of the rotation through 6, making his way over the apex curve there, using the weight of the car to give him stability, and now up into the high rise here as he comes into turn number 8, into Coppice Corner, braking uphill, clipping the apex curve very nicely in third gear, and accelerates now full throttle here, full commitment. Those front tyres are going to have to do a lot of work, and as he makes his way down the straight here, all the way down in towards Goddard, into what is the national chicane effectively, braking nice and late as he dare into turn number 9, the right-hander, before flicking the car over the apex curves through 9 and 10, and that is a lap of Donington Park National. It's brought to you by Alberto Alvarez, our championship leader in the AM class. A fast lap, and as he crosses the line, he's going to be the man to beat so far, and that's a 13.54. There's plenty more lap time out there for all of our drivers. There's no doubt about that. If we saw 1 minute 12s in the final practice session, albeit we've got some cloud over the circuit and track temperature will have come down to a degree, we've got plenty more lap time to come, and Duncan Murray's immediately setting a 1:13.468. And one thing we're going to talk about is the Honda Civic driver sets like then. Edwin Onofre then goes even faster, 1:12.9, the first 1:12 of the session, and that's in the AM class. Well, we were talking about the fact that Honda is the all-rounder car. We talked about the Honda being the race car with the very good brakes and the overall durability in the race. What about the Audi RS3? Well, we've seen the Audi go through weird phases. We saw in the season opener at Laguna Seca it was quite a strong car. Then we saw at Summit Point it was there or thereabouts. It was very competitive in the race, a bit less so in qualifying. And now at Watkins Glen, it just seemed to fade into the ether. It was the case the Audi drivers weren't really there versus the other cars available. Now the Audi is a bit of an odd car, because it is the qualifying car typically due to its gearbox. It's got a very aggressive gearbox, and that means that in corners and circuits where there's a lot of mixed braking zones and corners of different types, this car can be quite a handful to get used to which gear you actually want to use for a corner. You can have a lot of additional up and down shifts, and whilst these cars are of course running semi-automatic twin clutch transmissions, which you'll see in typical say GT3 cars and GT4 cars as well, that means every time you do have an up and down shift, it's going to be quick. It's the case you don't have to move a gear stick or put in a clutch, unlike you would a normal road car typically, unless you're an automatic driver, but it is the case that for these drivers, every little gear shift costs, say, half a second or even just a tenth of a second, and that tenth of a second could be you putting the power down and actually getting some traction out of the car. As we see Takahashi there, to be fair, setting a nice lap, a 1:13.1 so far in this qualifying session. So the Audi does have some legs here, and Takahashi, one of our stronger Audi drivers within the AM class for certain, and it is the case we are looking forward to seeing what he can do a bit later on in this session. But right now, Edwin Onofre here has just improved his lap to a 12.7, a phenomenal lap there from Onofre, and my goodness, I mean, if the man wanted to set off the proceedings tonight to declare what he plans to do, i.e. win the AM class, he's definitely doing so right now, because that is a very strong lap. And, well, given the fact we saw a 1:12.1 be the fastest lap in practice, if our pros have got anything to say about it, I can imagine Onofre is actually going to be nesting himself quite nicely in amongst the pros. As we've completed the first 5 minutes of this qualifying session, we've only got another 2.5 minutes before our AMs will be called in after their final lap, and the pros will be making their way out of the pits. As I'm hearing Sam Van Olst has actually left his pit box a little bit early. I think that's just a bit premature of him, perhaps getting a bit too eager and forgetting the rules, but he will be parking up back in his pit box very shortly, or just waiting in the pit lane there. And, well, I think the stewards will have a word with him about that one after the race to say you might just get a little bit of a warning for being a bit enthusiastic. But to be fair, we do love some good enthusiasm. As we see a newcomer here today, we've got multiple newcomers, and oh goodness me, forget my manners. Let's introduce some of our newcomers. So we do have here Jackie Chu in the AM class, racing in the Honda Civic Type R, and a very colourful Honda Civic Type R at that. Fantastic colours there, and definitely standing out as he makes his way down towards turns 9 and 10, in towards Gollard's here, as he rolls them through right now. Let's see what he's able to do for his next qualifying lap. A 14.5 is the one he's got to beat right now in terms of his time, and where Sector 1 was not too strong, Sector 2 was an improvement. As he crosses the line there, it's going to be an improvement to a 13.8 for Chu. Quite a nice lap there, looking good. Meanwhile, other drivers that we're going to be introducing, we've got Mason Roach as well, who's joined here as he makes his way on down through turns at 2 and 3 in the Honda Civic Type R as well, in a very colourful red black liveried Honda Civic Type R there, as he rolls the car down into the old hairpin, and as he makes his way through. Why do we call it the old hairpin? Well, it was the original hairpin on the Donington layout back in the early days of the circuit's inception. Keeping in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this was one of the first circuits within sort of the British circuit history, if you will, where it was formed briefly after the Second World War, if I remember my facts correctly, but it's one of the original British motor racing circuits. When we talk about original circuits, Donington is one for the United Kingdom. As he rolls his way there, does Roach through Coppice and heads down the back straight here. Meanwhile, other people we've got to introduce, well, we do have Christian Jasper here, but I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, Christian Jasper joined us a bit earlier on in the season. He's not a relatively newcomer driver, but we'll have to see. And meanwhile, we do have Matt Repska here. Well, I've probably butchered his surname multiple times already, but it is the case. Matt is joining us as tonight for the rest of the season. We look forward to seeing what the Honda Civic drivers are able to do. Well, so far, currently P8 on a 1:13.1, and as he makes his way down through what is the crane of curves here through 2 and 3, will he be able to get further up the order? This will be his final qualifying lap, of course, and with that in mind, what can he do to try and improve? Well, I don't think he's going to be improving too much right now, as I do look at his sector timings for what was his Sector 1, and in fact his Sector 1 there was a personal best. In fact, the fastest Sector 1 of anybody, a 20.8, or at least that's his previous lap time, at least that's on my registration board. So he's got Sector 1 now, it's just the rest of the lap where he's got to improve. But as he makes his way around right now, it is the case that he's looking quite strong here as the Honda driver, as we are starting to hear that our pros are leaving the pit lane. And, well, in the AM class, I think it is going to be Edwin Onofre who takes the pole position. Well, we've got a little bit of time left. There's still some laps to go here, but Onofre coming on through once again. He's improved in Sector 2. He's a bit down in Sector 1. Can he improve and raise the bar even higher? He crosses that timing line, and it is a 1:12.6. My goodness, Onofre on fire right now. And, well, what about the rest of that? Well, Takahashi improved to P2 in the end, and the Audi driver deserving a round of applause there. And goodness me, I'm trying to say his surname correctly, ladies and gentlemen. It is the case. Retzker putting in a 1:12.6. An absolutely fantastic lap there from the Honda driver. And, well, he's made his intentions very clear. Whatever Onofre can do, he's not going to be too far behind. It's not going to be the Hyundai show. But as he makes his way now and around and into his pit box once again, we do look to what is our pro drivers. And, well, they're making their way around right now. We do have Lauzon in amongst the pack here. We're just trying to find the driver who's right at the front of the pack, as we do continue to look on around. And it is the case. I do believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, well, no, Tanner Dibbles left the pit lane quite late. It is the case that I think we've got Conrad Macau towards the front of the pack here as he goes on to a lap. He does have a fellow Hyundai in front in the number 66 car, and that is Thomas Toomey, who has joined us as of this round. It is the case he's one of our newcomers as well, and everybody welcome on board the Hyundai driver as he makes his way on around right now. Well, he's got a lot of pressure already in this qualifying session because he's got the whole pro pack following him around right now, and he's the lead driver in this pro qualifying session as he makes his way on down through the crane of curves here and heads up towards the old hairpin. But as he comes roaring on down the hill right now through turn number 3, the Hyundai driver bringing the car together, and you can see from the exterior camera that weight transfer on the car as he comes down into the old hairpin wheels. You come down the crane of curves, and I can definitely tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, from doing quite a bit of sim racing around the Donington Park National Circuit, you literally come through a left-hander and then you have to bring the car's momentum all the way into a straight line and then very heavily go on the brakes and then roll the car through the old hairpin. It is the case, it's the ultimate transfer of weight across the car, because you've got the car's weight literally shifting from left to right, and then suddenly you want to bring it all back into the centre and then bring it forward under braking, and it's a horrible feeling. And well, thankfully these cars have got their engines in the front. You can imagine if they had their engines in the rear of the car, how that rear would be sliding out. If we were talking about something such as the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, for example, as racing the Blancpain series, you can imagine that weight transfer is going to be even more awkward to manage. But as Toomey comes across the line here, what's it going to be for our open lap in this session in the pros? Well, he disappears and he reappears, a little bit of latency. It's a 1:13.8, not a strong lap, but meanwhile we can see Eric Nickens behind him using the slipstream there, and Eric Nickens immediately going P3 overall with a 1:12.7. I think he'll be feeling he needs to get past Toomey ahead of him, because he is being held up a little bit right now as he's tucked in so close behind the Hyundai as they roll on down. Now, as they make the way on through, we look a little bit further down the order right now, and really a driver who's yet to put in a lap in this qualifying session, the pro driver, and that's because he's on a lap right now, we should really say, is Tanner Dibble, the Audi driver here. And well, what is he going to be able to do in the Audi RS3? He's currently, with the target time he's got to beat within his class is a 1:12.7 as he makes his way on down. And well, will he be able to improve as Eric Nickens jumped to the pit lane, has just made his way back out of the pit lane, and will Dibble at 1:15.2. I think he's made a bit of a mistake there, and I think he's just trying to sight himself up very nicely as we see Eric Nickens coming out of the pits in the background. But as they all make the way on through right now, we can see Dibble just coming through turn 1, through Redgate Corner once again, and down the crane of curves at turns 2 and 3. And as he rolls on down, we look from him to Jordan Butler here. And well, Butler, what is he able to do as he's in the long train here of cars? And indeed, a lot of drivers opting to go for a slipstream-based approach to qualifying here. This isn't unusual. We saw it at Watkins Glen in particular, and it worked out for a number of drivers. Well, we didn't see it in Watkins Glen, my apologies. We would have seen it in Watkins Glen, but it was a feature round. We did see it at Summit Point to an extent as well, and some drivers were able to work it out. Some came a cropper, but meanwhile we can see that Austin Farr a 1:12.3, and that is the fastest lap of this session so far overall, and in the pro class provisionally a 1:12.3. They've been 1/10 faster than Daniel Downing, and well, Downing here he is as he rolls on down through turn number 3 and into the braking zone for the old hairpin here. And I think it is the case that two Goldwing Motorsports drivers will be looking to try and find a way to essentially get themselves quite nicely ahead of the rest of the field. And you can imagine that if Goldwing were able to lock out that front row and set themselves up to hold that front row to their advantage, it may help them out in the long run. And well, I just apologise there, ladies and gentlemen, if you heard a bit of a bump. I've had a bit of artwork come down off the wall next to me. I'll sort that out later on, not to interrupt things. As our drivers make their way on through and around right now, it is the case that we can see Downing getting everything right so far as he makes his way through Coppice and up towards Goddard's at turns 9 and 10. But as he comes into the heavy braking zone, well, we'll have to wait and see what does happen here, whether he's able to get one up on Austin Farr, or whether it will be the case that he continues to have to wait and see if he can get a better lap in next time. He's only got 2.5 minutes in this qualifying session left, and as you can see there, all the different drivers simply fall into formation, and well, it is the case that Farr and Downing stay as they were. What about other drivers here trying to improve? We see John Wilding there improving, and John Wilding, if you're trying to pick him out from the bunch, is the Hyundai at the back of this pack with the Five Guys logos all over it. He's a big fan of Five Guys, and well, I think he's like me because I'm a massive fan of Five Guys as well, and it's the case they roll down through 1 and into 2 here. Well, Wilding doing everything right now in terms of getting himself quite way up the order. He's currently P10. He's got a bit more time in the car, I think, however, but meanwhile from him we go a bit further up, and Sam Van Olst here, the Audi does have some life in it, and well, Van Olst has shown it in the pro class, and we saw that Takahashi showed it in the AM class, but Takahashi P3 in the AM class, and what is P14 overall, and Van Olst right now really trying to eke out pressure here on that qualifying session. He's got a bit of traffic in front of him. That's John Lauzon who peels out the way quite respectfully there. Lauzon didn't have to do that. Technically, he wasn't a fast lap, but he's decided to peel out the way. And, well, will we see Van Olst here get an improvement? We'll have to wait and find out as he comes on through and around. As he makes his way down the back straight here, heading up towards Goddard's once again, in towards 9 and 10. It will be the case that as he rolls into the braking zone, he's going to have to clatter it over those apex curves, use those sausage curves to his advantage. And the Audi very comfortable there, although he understeers a little bit wide, just uses the runoff here as we see the number 72 car run by. Jason Landry takes provisional pole, and it's the case Van Olst comes across. He did not improve there, but Jason Landry raises the bar to a 112.2. It is the case that our Pro Championship leader right now, our America's Cup champion in the Pro class, is continuing as he left off at the America's Cup. It is the case he's translated it across the Atlantic, and he's showing that he's not just a one-stop show in the United States. He can also deliver on British soil, but we'll wait and see whether he can follow that up, of course, in the race itself. But right now it's looking as though Landry once again putting in a very strong qualifying session here, but he's not too far ahead of the rest of his peers. He's only half a tenth ahead of Austin Farr right now, and everybody else behind him, Downing, Van Ols, Bayliss, they're all close. And actually, that's something we haven't talked about here. Tristan Bayless, well, it is the case that, well, he had a fantastic drive, of course, at Watkins Glen, holding on for the win in the end. He was helped out to a degree by the reverse grid based on the championship stands, starting quite far up, and therefore the action really came to him towards the end. We can't deny that, but what we also can't deny is his ability to defend very well at Watkins Glen. And currently P5, this Honda seems to be coming to Bayliss. Started off a bit difficulty at what was Summit Point, not quite there on the pace, but as time has gone on, it seems as though this Honda is really starting to suit him, and now he is putting in some fantastic drives. He comes on through here to complete his qualifying session. He straight lines it there to try and shorten the run to timeline, and he does not improve, but well, he does improve in the end at 12.4. That moves him up to P5, but John Lau's on there, creeping his way up into P3 at the final hour. And well, where is Sam Van Ols? Well, Van Ols has completed his qualifying session, I think, unless I'm very much mistaken, and it's a P6 at most of the Audi driver. And in the end, unless anybody is on a final lap, it does look as though Jason Landry has taken pole position in the Pro class. And well, with that then, ladies and gentlemen, it is the case. Jason Landry is your pole position man in the Pro class and overall, and it is Edwin Onofre who qualifies on pole for the AM class by a sizable margin. Onofre P8 overall, with Matt Repska in what is all good. It's been, we had a driver just come on through, and that is Eric Nickens saving it all to the final moment, and Nickens goes P7. I was going to say Onofre was going to be P8 on the overall grid. No, he's P9, and Repska in P11 in the end, in P2 in the AM class. But a brilliant qualifying session, and well, now we wait to go racing, and we're not too far away from forming up the grid. And as we do wait for the grid to be formed here, it can take a little bit of time. Have we got anything we can really analyse or sort of assess? Well, from qualifying, it does seem as though the Hyundai and the Honda are very strong here at Donington. The Audi a little bit less so in qualifying conditions. But you can imagine this could all change in the race. And of course, in the race, it brings out a different kind of beast in some drivers. And what I mean by that is it can bring out a bit of a driver who is better in the race, where they feel they can maintain a very steady pace, whereas they may not have the confidence to do it all in a single qualifying lap. Indeed, I'll tell you from my experience, I'm one of those drivers. I'm more of a race driver. I qualify poorly normally, but I enjoy the overall concept of consistency under race pressure, and that's something some drivers do enjoy. And well, we are waiting and seeing. We have seen that from some drivers who've qualified badly but then done very well in the race. But without further ado, let's bring you that grid, ladies and gentlemen, and take you through it. So as our grid is being formed up, it is Jason Landry who has qualified on pole in the end, ahead of Austin Farr, who will join him on the front row. John Lawson and Daniel Downing on row number 2, with Sam Van Olst and Tristan Bayliss on row 3, Eric Nickens and Henry Morse on row 4, with Edwin Onofre, our AM pole position sitter, in P9 net, Jordan Butler alongside him for DNA. Matt Repetska and John Wilding on row number 6, and then behind them it will be the case Tanner Dibble and Conrad Macau on what is row number 7, Fernando Takahashi and Alberto Alvarez on row number 8, the two AM drivers there with Duncan Moraes and Jermaine Warren behind them. Lee Porter and Craig Parks complete our top 20. Patrick Brady and Lucas Lagos on row number 11 there, and then we have Jeff Destino and Jackie Chu on row number 12. Thomas Toomey and Danny Kimball there on row number 13. Thomas Toomey having a difficult qualifying session, I think, trying to get himself up to speed in the Pro class there on his debut. Let's not count him out, however, in the race. Christian Jasper and Mark Senecal on row number 14. Mason Roach and Tony Tran on row number 15. And then last but not least, starting on row number 16 on his lonesome in P31 is Rodney Felker for Pan Am Racing. But that is your qualifying order, ladies and gentlemen, and well, this is round number 4 of the Touring Car Racing Championship, as brought to you by Middle of the Pack Racing League at Donington Park. It is the kickoff of the British Touring Cup, and we are now only moments away from going racing. Indeed, we have got a fantastic race ahead of us. 20 minutes, of course, in the sprint race, as everybody is readying up right now. And as we do look to the blimp camera, we can see all of our drivers parked up there, waiting for the green signal for the pace car to take them away. Of course, the pace car will peel off once they come out of the final chicane, and it will be for Jason Landry to get our guys and girls to what is the start-finish line, and then they'll be taken away and going racing as soon as they cross that line. And everybody has to patiently wait, of course, until Landry reaches that critical starting point. but as they all gradually peel away here and they go on to that partial warm-up lap, that partial formation lap, where we're starting off just before Coppice and our drivers are already making their way down the back straight. You can see it's the case that everybody pulling away nice and safely here, and well, we look back up towards the front of the field. Although I do think we might have one or two drivers who are planning to start from the pit lane. They might be feeling a little bit nervous at the start of what is this, and I think it's in particular, I think we've had already engine failure for Tristan Jasper. I'm hearing he's not been able to take to the field. Tristan Jasper retiring, I'm hearing that they've had problems with the Honda's engine, so we've already had one retirement. He didn't make it to the start, but right now we do bring the cameras back on down and we wait for the Canadian Jason Landry to get us underway for 20 minutes of racing here at Donington. And it's lights out and away we go. And I think some of our newer drivers have had a little bit of a moment towards the back of the field already with regards to not remembering the fact that the field gets underway at Jason Landry's pace. But in the end, it is go, go, go. And as they all make their way into turn number one for the first time of asking, quite a few side-by-sides there. John Lauzon in particular under pressure nice and early from what is down in there. Down's going to try and go around the outside all the way down through the crane of curves in towards the old hairpin. It's side-by-side into the braking zone. But I think in the end, it is the case. Lauzon holding the position a bit further back. You can see we've already got a car off as well. That's Austin Farr taking a bit of a rallycross line in the back of your picture. And my goodness, what starts this race is Alberto Alvarez has jumped all the way out to P2 in the AM class. He's got up to P13 and they're not even halfway through the opening lap. But as they make their way up towards what is in towards McLean's corner right now, it is the case. Everybody now falling into a line, or just about, as Fernando Takahashi under a bit of pressure there as we roll our way through McLean up towards Coppice. And as they go up the hill now into this blind summit braking zone, you can see how some drivers have just had a very difficult start compared to others. And as they make their way through, well, Jackie Chu, who was involved in that confrontation, that conflagration with regards to, I think, misinterpreting the race start procedure, it is the case that Jackie Chu right now for Sunday GT Turtles getting themselves underway, but they may have a bit of a penalty in the background of their mind with regards to how things go at the end of this race. But after one lap, it is the case the battling continues here, and we look to the front of the field as it's Sam Van Olst here in a bit of a side-by-side with Henry Morse, the two Audi drivers going toe-to-toe, and behind them Eric Nickens and Edwin Onofre also there along his inside as they make their way through Redgate corner. And as they come on down now into the crane of curves, which is going to be 2x2 initially, and you can see there Jordan Butler getting ahead of Tristan Bayless, but Bayless trying to come back in with the run down through 2 and 3. And I think there's been a bit of contact. Butler goes wide. And I think Bayless may have got it a bit wrong. We've also got there, we've got the Five Guys machine of John Wilding taking a bit of a run off the road. And well, I think it's gone all sorts of wrong down through the crane of curves. But as they make their way now under Woodstocky's Bridge, turn number 5 and up into 6, and then heading up towards turn number 7. It is the case they all just about bring it back onto circuit. But it is the case Fernando Takahashi, with the AM driver here, has made a lot of ground at the start of this race. And that Audi is just simply purring along right now. And well, you can forgive him for the fact he might be thinking about letting Jordan Butler through, because the pro driver here is going to try and come through with a vengeance for the simple reason he wants to go hunting after the drivers he was battling with only moments ago. But as they roll them through and down the back straight once again here, it is the case we look from our pros towards Jeff Destino here, battling with Warren as they make their way down through the right-hander at turn number 8 and head all the way down towards 9 and 10 up towards Gollard. So for those of you who want it in the naming convention, as they make their way down towards the chicane, and as they come into 9 and 10 right now, no attempt to move this time as they come on through. And I think Justino having to park up the car a little bit and think, okay, get yourself back into the rhythm, as we see Jordan, oh goodness me, I think Jordan Butler's had a bit of a moment. He's sideways there around the chicane. Not sure what's quite happened. Unfortunately, we can't give you a replay of what's happened because of the technical limitations we have, but what we can tell you is that after 2 laps and making his way down into the old hairpin right now, Jason Landry leads this race by only 0.2 of a second ahead of Austin Farr in P2. It's Daniel Dan in P3, followed by John Lauzon in P4, with the top 3 breaking away. John Lauzon 1.2 seconds back. Sam Van Olst in P5, followed by Henry Morse in P6. The Audi army going strong here as the Eric Nickens gives pursuit in P7. Edwin Onofre, our leader in the AM class, P8 overall for Ascension Racing, followed by Conrad McCowan P9. Then Alberto Alvarez here, P2 in the AM class, P10 overall, followed by Tanner Devil P11. And then Fernando Takahashi, P3 in the AM class in P12. He's got Tristan Bayless behind in P13, Lee Porter in P14, and then we have Jackie Chu round off our top 15 as they make their way around on this 3rd lap. And we see Tristan Bayless there making the move. As in the rear view picture, we've got a car off circuit a bit further back, and I think that is one of our Hondas. That's Tony Tran having a little bit of an off-road experience there, coming out McLean's and up into Coppice. He brings the car back together. I think there might have been a little bit of contact there. I'm gathering from Lucas Lagos as they make their way on down here. And we can see, looking at Lucas right now, the Arc Racing team driver making his way in towards that braking zone for the chicane very shortly, and we're trying to go on the offensive. As meanwhile, a bit further up the road, we do have just Destino, who's found his way past Rodney Velker, and as they make their way through, you can see here how John Wilding, after having that excursion going down into the old hairpin laps ago, now battling with Rodney Velker and also Rebecca as they make their way through. He's had to lift off, however, due to a penalty, and it is the case that it's Matt who's going to be going all the way around the outside here. The privateer on his debut, taking no easy way of making a move around Redgate Corner. You go around the outside, it's near impossible to make a move around the outside without a side-by-side battle down through the crane of curves. He's going to commit to it here. Both of them making their way on down, and this is impressive stuff from the Honda driver. Can he keep it? No, I think he's going to lose it unless we're going to see Velker go deep, but Velker parks the car very nicely, does Rodney Velker. Ahead of him, we've got, I think that's just Destino, who's got it a bit wrong there coming through the hairpin. He's regained his place on the circuit, but he's lost a lot of track positions. And as they make their way up into McLean's here, it is the case that right now Velker having to hold everybody when he goes a bit deep, and the pressure has got to him. Retzka has got up into another position, moving up into P22. That's P11 as we see there. I think there was contact with Destino, and Velker is into the tyre barrier, and that front axle has collapsed. And I think that's Velker retiring from the race, so he's going to have to jump to the pits, and that's a disaster. But meanwhile, we look a bit further up the road. I can tell you Daniel Downing right now putting pressure on Jason Landry, and Austin Farr leading this race, and well, Farr just trying to take it off into the distance. He wants to take it as far away as he possibly can. Excuse the pun, it's not intentional. It is the case that Austin Farr wants to win this one and prove to Jason Landry it's not the Jason Landry show. There are other drivers here who can take wins as they make their way down for the right hand with the old hairpin once more. And as they come charging through this time on lap number 5, I think Landry's looking with one eye to his rearview mirror because Daniel Downing right now has something to say about Landry's dominance. And as they make their way through the right hander of what is McLean's, it is the case that right now our top 4 really coming together. As they make their way on around, it is a little bit further back that we cast our eyes very shortly because Edwin Onofre right now with the AM driver here. He may be AM in terms of class, but his pace right now is that of the pros as he comes roaring on through. And to give you an idea of Onofre, his best lap at 112.46. He set his best lap on the previous lap. Meanwhile, Alberto Alvarez behind at 112.6, and it is the case that right now Onofre 0.2 of a second a lap faster when he's in a clear run. And well, that's Onofre's pace being demonstrated very clearly here. We're only just over a quarter of the way through the sprint race right now, and it is the case, I think Onofre, if he keeps this up, he's going to feel very comfortable. As we see Alvarez there having to lift off. I think he's had to burn a penalty for track limits, and as he makes his way through, we call them penalties. It's a slowdown, if you want to know it in the proper terminology in iRacing. It's the case where a driver cuts track limits, they'll be told they need to slow down a certain amount of time in order to be able to give back the time they gained from cutting the course. But it is the case that Alvarez right now having a bit of difficulty here at Donington and not able to keep that form of being on the top step as he makes his way down through the crane of curves and in towards the old hairpin at turn number 4. But behind me, or a bit further behind, we do have one at Roach. That's Mason Roach here, who on his debut really enjoying the race, and the Ascension Racing driver on the offensive versus Patrick Brady as they come down to the old hairpin this time around. 7 minutes complete, 13 still to go here, and whilst the field has calmed down to an extent now compared to the opening 3-4 laps where we did see a lot of battling, it is the case that Roach really now just trying to smooth his way into the racing here. I think everybody now taking a different approach to this kind of race. We have seen in the opening 3 rounds whereby there's a lot of battling in the opening laps, and that battling never seemed to go away. Donington here, however, is offering us something a little bit different, which is that Donington's not the easiest track to overtake at, for the simple reason there's not too many long straights for you to be able to gain the slipstring to be able to go for an overtake instantaneously. You've got to have a significant pace advantage around here, particularly through turns 4 through to 6. You've got to be able to nail those apexes, and if you do so, well, those overtaking opportunities will come very quickly. Whereas if you're not quite on the form, it is the case you've got a lot more work to do to gain those positions. It's not to say it was easy in America, but I think you get what I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that some drivers are going to have to really push hard, and that's exactly what Roach is doing as he looks at the move here versus Brady into Redgate at turn number 1, but he's not able to find it. Instead, he has to tuck in and wait his turn. And it's also about the driver in front being put under pressure to make a mistake. And will one driver who will know that right now, Mark Senegal, he'll be hoping that Chu, Toomey and Porter are further up the road from him, will make mistakes or put one up pressure, because the Sunday GT Turtles driver right now in a little bit of a quiet space here as he makes his way through. P18 overall, P7 in the AM class. As meanwhile, we look from him to further up the road, and it is the case. Well, I can tell you that Rodney Felger has had to retire side of the car, and Jasper, they were never able to get out of the pits with the engine damage. Rodney Felker, of course, will collapse suspension here at was Coppice Corner only 2 laps ago when he went off circuit with a collision with one of our fellow drivers. But it is the case, whilst we have had to say goodbye to him in this race, well, we go from one Hyundai being out to one Hyundai who is on the charge, and that is, of course, Jason Landry, and well, the Hyundais are Downing and Lauzon behind. But as they come across the line here to go into lap number 8, you can see it is this case right now where the Hyundais behind just do not seem to have an answer to the Honda supremacy of Austin Varr as he makes his way through Redgate Corner at turn number 1. He just seems very comfortable. But meanwhile, I think Landry's made a bit of a mistake because Downey's going for the move here, and coming on through is also John Lauzon, and well, it looks over Knowles just finding his way on through. And as they make their way on down through the crane of curves here, I think Landry's going to be thinking to himself, oh no. And the reason I say that, ladies and gentlemen, remember what I said earlier as we ride on board with the Knowles here, the one thing he is the strongest out of anyone is defensive driving. He is almost impossible to pass unless he makes a mistake. And for Knowles, in that Audi, the one thing the Audi is known for is snappy medium gear acceleration. So 3rd through to 5th is where this car's acceleration is absolutely monstrous. And well, compared to the Honda in front and behind him, as he's in the Hyundai sandwich right now, as he gets very close to the back of John Lauzon, you can imagine he will be able to use that acceleration to his advantage as they roll on down the back straight here, looking for that potential move. As we see Lauzon going a little bit defensive in the middle of the road there. I think Vanol's putting a bit of pressure onto Lauzon, and Lauzon reacting to it, I think a bit unnecessarily, if I may say so. And it is the case that right now Lauzon is looking more backwards than forwards, and it's enabling Downing to open up a gap to 5/10 of a second, with Austin Varr a further 1.1 seconds up the road here. And I think it's the case that Goldwing Motorsports, oh goodness me, and Van Knowles there thinking about a potential move at the last possible minute. I think he was 50-50 on whether to snap the steering wheel hard to the right and commit, but it was the case. He didn't go for it to Redgate, and as they make their way down the crane of curves, this time half the race time complete, well, we're going to be waiting to see what Van Knowles can do. But behind, meanwhile, you can see Landry really caught up behind the Audi driver, and well, he's got the pace. It's very clear right now that Audi isn't going as fast as its Hyundai, but the thing is, closing is one thing, as the legendary Murray Walker said, but it's a case that passing is an entirely different thing. And as they make their way up into McLean's, Landry takes a look up the inside. He's almost there, but this is where the Audi's acceleration just strikes. And as they make their way up towards Coppice, you can see Landry has to pull the car in, and he has to as well, for the simple reason, if he runs through Coppice offline, then Henry Morse, the Goldwing Motorsports Audi RS3, will come charge on through. And look, Landry's having to go defensive here. Morse has got the momentum, but he just doesn't quite have the top end. And that's where the Audi is hurt. Its 6th gear is exposed. And as they make their way through Collards this time, it is the case that behind them, Eric Nickens would love to get on the action. And then Edwin Onofre here is just watching, I think, rubbing his hands together and thinking, okay, lads, just keep fighting on. I don't mind as long as you don't cost me time. But Landry here under pressure from Morse. There's a bit of contact, and Morse is pushed onto the grass. And that's very unfortunate. The smallest of taps, and well, Henry Morse is now back up to speed, but it's the case he's lost a lot of positions, and that is unfortunate for Henry Morse, who was looking very threatening. And well, looking a bit further back, it's Duncan Moraes and Takahashi making their way through turn number 1. The AM drivers here battling for P3, and Moraes has just finished making the move around the outside of Takahashi, but the Honda driver, Goldwing Motorsports AM, as he rolls on down through the crane of curves here and coming up into the old hairpin. These two, of course, they're not foreigners to one another in terms of battling. Some great battles we've had between these two drivers in the past, and it does look as though they're carrying on that story today as they make their way on through and up towards what is McLean's Corner. They've gone on Starkey's Bridge, they come up the hill and into that braking zone. They've got a bit more of a hill to go after that. And as they make their way around the right hand here, it is the situation where we do seem to have that field that is very closely knit together, particularly in the Procast. The AMs, however, the story's a little bit different. We've got quite a bit of space between our leading AM drivers and the rest of the AM field. And really, Duncan Moraes is the rest of the AM field right now in terms of the head of the tip of the spear. In the fact, he's in P3 in the AM class, P13 overall. Takahashi putting that pressure on behind. But then you have to look quite a way down to see some close AM action at the moment. And it's Mark Senegal in particular who's in a bit of a no man's land here. The Sunday GT Turtles drives 3.2 seconds off a Chew, and he's 2.4 seconds up the road from Brady. And well, sometimes you'd love to have that, but I think you'll also be hoping he can get a bit closer a bit later on as they make their way across that timeline once again and go on to lap number 11. We've still got what is 7.5 minutes to go here, plenty of racing still to come, and we'll have to wait and see. But speaking of racing to come, we can see Henry Morse here, the Goldwing Motorsports Audi driver, right on the back of Conrad McCall as they make their way around and through under Starkey's Bridge and head up towards McLean's Corner. And as they make their way up the hill, it is the case, rolling the car on up. Well, we'll have to wait and see how Morse tries to navigate this. He's clearly got an advantage. He's making that very clear. He's able to turn the front end there very easily through McLean's compared to Macau. And Macau's struggling on that front end through the right-handers. And I do wonder when Macau's got a bit of a problem with the car. Perhaps some damage. Alternatively, he's put a bit too much wear in the tyres too early. We've typically seen it's the Audi that falls off as we go deeper into the race first, then the Hyundai, and then the Honda right at the end. But it seems as though today the Hyundai is the car that you don't want to be in the race. Meanwhile, in qualifying, the Hyundai seems to be the qualifying car. It's an interesting change of fashion here. We haven't heard about any balance and performance updates being brought recently to the iRacing platform, but right now we are seeing a complete rebalance in the form of our drivers' cars. As we can see here, Mason Roach getting very close to the back of Patrick Brady as Brady tries to hold position. We ride on board the gearbox here, Patrick Brady, the privateer in P19, P8 in the AM class, as they make their way across the timeline. 6 minutes still to go. That equates to approximately 5 more laps of racing from these guys as they make their way through right now. I think everyone now is starting to look at those battles of position. Oh, goodness me, and it was the case, excuse me, that Roach, they're going a little bit too deep into Redgate corner at turn 1, and as a result, where it's the case that Warren has just come on through like a missile there, and well, Jermaine Warren, I think, said, you don't need to invite me twice to do that, Roach. I'm just going to simply come throughout the inside, and as they make their way down through the corners now, through the old hairpin, we've got a bit of dust being kicked up there of the apex. You can see just how much that apex curve they've been stripping off in terms of the grass on its inside, where they're trying to cut it as much as possible in order to give themselves as much width to the corner, which is what you want to do. But right now, Jermaine Warren, the middle of the pack racing driver here, representing, of course, the league's official team in this series, and I promise you they don't get any preferential treatment. In this case, they're all treated equally as he makes his way up through Coppice right now, trying to keep that pressure on Brady. But speaking of pressure, we are starting to hear at the front of the field, Austin Farr now getting a bit of pressure from his teammate of what is Downing here. And of course, remember, there is not a team championship prize up for grabs, but it is a little bit of an awkward situation right now because both of these guys will want to take a win, but at the same time, they'll also want to try and steer clear of taking one another out for the purposes of getting points to the team, and also because they look great on camera for the sponsors when both cars are in the single camera shot, although it is the case they're not too worried about that. I hope they're not. I hope they're here to race more so than the sponsors. I'm sure they are. But it is the case that Austin Farr right now under some pressure from his teammate. But again, this could be a little bit of positive pressure here. It may cause Farr to just go a little bit faster and cause Lauzon, who's in P3 here, to fall further backwards towards Van Ols. Alternatively, it may encourage Lauzon to push even harder and make a mistake, and that could open up an opportunity for Knowles, who's behind. And of course, the Goldwing Motorsports driver here is Sam Van Ols, who would love it. They would love for it to be a Goldwing Motorsports podium, i.e. all 3 podium slots occupied by one of their drivers, but we'll have to wait and see. I think Van Ols right now has still got Landry trying to find a way to chip away at that defensive wall that is just impenetrable of Van Ols. He seems to have an answer for everything as they make their way out of Goddards, and I think it's the time. It's the case Van Ols went a bit deep there through the double apex, and as they make their way across that timeline, 4 minutes to go here. Well, Landry's going to be made to go around the outside if he dares to go for this move. He's going to look for the cutback, however, through Redgate. You can see how he's trying to tuck on in, but Van Ols very smart there. Just simply says, okay, if you're going to try it, I'm going to park it on the apex. We'll both lose time. You can see Eric Nickens creeping closer as the Hyundai Landry tries to cut onto the inside into the crane of curves, but there's no way through there. Van Ols can simply use the width of his Audi to block it off before the move even happens, and as they roll through the right-hander of the old hairpin, it's much the same as before here. But you can see Van Ols really now taking the speed out of the car. He's simply parking it, and as they make their way through 5 and 6, it's bring Eric Nickens into the battle, and as they roll on through here, we ride on board the gearbox of Van Ols, and you can see the difference in the body language. Of course, we can't see Van Ols' car, but we get a perspective here from what Landry's trying to do, and Landry's looking for every possible cutback here to get the momentum. That Audi's so strong in corner exit by comparison with the Goldwing Motorsports machine. But now as they make their way out to Coppice and down the back straight, it is the case that you can see, look how much of a gap has opened up here. It looks a long gap. It is only 4 tenths on our chart, but that 4 tenths of a second is huge in relative terms as they make their way through the chicane here with only now 3 laps to go when they cross that timeline this time around. But as they make their way on through, it is the case that once again Landry getting the better run, and Van Ols has to go defensive. It's much like on the previous lap, but this time Landry's got a bit more momentum. Now, will he commit all the way around the outside? It's daring to do. He does go for the commitment there, but he can't quite find the momentum to keep it. The Audi just out accelerates the Hyundai just out of apex, and as they make the way down the hill this time, down towards the old hairpin, through the crane of curves they come. You see Nickens having to watch, and Onofre there just simply getting the popcorn seat view of it all and simply saying, just keep fighting, guys, I don't mind, just don't take one another out and take me with you. And as they make the way through right now, Onofre doesn't have to worry about any pressure because Alvarez right now is the best part of 6-7 seconds down the road, but you can see how Nickens here trying to find a way on in as we ride on board with the street version Hyundai driver here, tucked in very tight versus Landry. Now the problem for Nickens is he has to make a decision. Does he stay tight right to Landry, or does he stay a little bit further back and look for a cutback opportunity in case the two of them fight? That's the problem when you're the third driver. Of course, you're third party to the battle, which means you can react more. But on top of that as well, if you stay too close and then an instant kicks off, you may find yourself being brought into it. As you can see, Landry taking a little bit of a peek to the inside there. He can't quite find the run down towards the Goddard chicane, and as they make the way out this time, where it does look as though Landry once again just not able to find a way through that defensive barrier of Van Olst, who really right now is holding them all to ransom in the pursuit of John Lauzon, who's 2.5 seconds up the road, and I think he's smiling this one into the bank. But as they make the way through, we look a little bit further back as Tanner Dibble right now looking for that potential move around the outside of Henry Morse here with only 2 laps to go. He can't quite find it, however, as it is the case that Morse goes defensive. The DNA driver Dibble tries to go around the outside to outside through the crane of curves into the old hairpin, but he has to tuck in. He knows there's no way of getting it done that far back, and as they make the way downhill into that braking zone, he watches, he waits, he looks at that opportunity, slithering all over the back end of his fellow Audi driver as they make their way through the left-hander here under Starkey's Bridge up towards McLean's once more, and as they roll through, Tristan Bayless a little bit further back and really has been out of the running for the top 5 positions today. But as they come through, the right-hander Dibble and Morse both battling over that P9 position. Overall, what will be effective for them, a P8 in class when it's all said and done. And as they make the way on through, no change this time as they come round through Coppice Corner here. One more lap to go after this, and with only 1 lap remaining, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out for these guys. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, I can tell you that Patrick Brady right now putting a lot of pressure on the back of Mark Senecal as they make their way up towards Coppice Corner themselves right now, the AM drivers, and as they roll through, it's the long train with Mark Senecal right at the head of the train, and as they come through Coppice and onto the back straight, this could be the opportunity. As you can see, it's the case. Look at everybody slithering to the inside here, looking for the gap, but it's going to be the case that Brady's going to go all in on the brakes, and we can see Warren also coming on through. It's a 2-for-1 pass, and Senecal can't turn in. He simply has to be a bystander there, and Jermaine Warren, we capitalised on a situation and he made it count, and that is very, very smart racing there from Jermaine Warren. To be fair, Patrick Brady with a daring move, but at the same time, we see Senecal here having to ledge on Wilding. There's contact between the two of them as Wilding makes the contact there from the Pro Class, the M Class driver, and that opens everything up right now. And my goodness, Mark Senecal is probably feeling the wound of that, as we can see, trying to go round him is also Lagros as they make the way on down in towards the old hairpin, and Lagros gets the move done. Well, he must have looked from them to the Goldwing Motorsports pack at the front of the field, because only 2 corners left. He's pretty much led this one from the start, and as he comes through the final 2 corners, here is your race winner, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be Austin Farr from Goldwing Motorsports who takes the overall win, and in the Pro Class, and it's Daniel Down in P2 with John Lauz on P3. A brilliant drive from all 3 of them. Sam Van Olst in the end holds on to P4 with a superb defensive wall, puts up against Jason Landry, who finishes P5, Eric Nickens P6, Conrad McCall P7, and then Edwin Onofre here, the Ascension Racing driver, the winner of the AM class here at Donington. A fantastic drive, untouchable in the AM class, Onofre, it would seem, ahead of Tanner Dibble, Tristan Bayless and Henry Morse P10 and P11, and then Alberto Alvarez here, P2 in the AM class when all is said and done, P12. And I think Alvarez will be looking back at this race afterwards and thinking, how on earth was Onofre that much faster than me? But Alvarez, to be fair, keeping his championship lead alive with a P2 finish. Duncan Ray's in the end bringing it home, P3 in the AM class, P13 overall. The Goldwing Motorsports AM driver in the Honda doing a great job there, and really once again showing why he is considered to be one of the major championship challengers, constantly on those podium finishes. Fernando Takahashi, P14, P4 in the AM class, and then leap forward to complete our top 15 there, and also P5 in the AM class with a solid drive, the middle of the pack racing driver. My goodness, what a fantastic race and start to finish. But as we do look back up towards the front right now, I think Austin Farr at this point will be thinking to himself that he can really now start to build that championship momentum, as you see them all making their way on down here. And John Lauzon as well, we talked about him at the start, the fact that he just seemed to disappear after the disaster at Laguna Seca in the season opener. He lost it all in the final couple of laps, but Lauzon today delivering a superb drive to P3. He must give credit to Sam Van Olst, however, who was literally the defensive wall that anybody could ask for behind. But Van Olst, to be fair, in the Audi finishing P4. The Audi is here to stay as well. It just requires a special nat, and Van Olst in the Pro Class definitely has it as they all make their way into the pits. Well, fantastic racing from all of our drivers, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, with that in mind, all we have to say is thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, that's the MPRL community in short, why not check us out at our official Discord, the link's available there. Or if you're a Twitter user, why not check us out at twitter.com/MOP Racing. But with that, that's all we've got time for today, and come back in a week's time for round number 2 of the British Touring Cup, round number 5 of the overall championship, where we'll be heading to Alton Park. We stay in the United Kingdom, we indeed stay in England for a circuit which is a bit different from Donington, but the one key thing with Alton Park is overtaking can be very difficult, and also it's a very rough and bumpy circuit, perhaps the bumpiest of all the circuits we've been to so far, and I'm sure with that, some elbows are going to come out and are rather beautiful but aggressive touring car machines. You'll have to wait a week, come back on Friday the 11th of March 2022 when we'll be bringing you all of the racing action once again. But until then, it's goodbye from us here at Middle of the Pack Racing League, or MOP Racing. It's goodbye from your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh. I am myself, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to have a great weekend, stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.